Good morning from Franklin Square Community Church. Our sermon today is Too Young, Too Old, Too Broken. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. 1 Timothy 4:12. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination and had no good ideas when he was fired from a newspaper for creative deficiency. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he started franchising Kentucky Fried Chicken after multiple business failures. Beethoven composed some of his greatest symphonies after losing his hearing. Stephen Hawking made groundbreaking contributions to physics despite being diagnosed with ALS and given 2 years to live. Each of these individuals faced circumstances that seemed to disqualify them from significant achievement, yet their supposed limitations became launching pads for extraordinary impact. Paul understood this principle when he counseled young Timothy not to let others look down on his youth. Age, experience, and circumstances don't determine your qualifications for God's purpose. Character and your calling do. Disqualification is deception. The enemy of our souls specializes in disqualification tactics, convincing us that we're too something or not enough something to be used by God. Too young, too old, too broken, too inexperienced, too educated, not educated enough, too wealthy, too poor, too introverted, too extroverted. These disqualifying thoughts aren't usually based on reality, but on fear, disguised as false humility. The Greek word kataphronio translates look down on. It means to despise or to think little of someone. Paul instructed Timothy not to allow others to diminish his contribution based on age, but the principle applies to any characteristic that people might use to discount your potential. Often, the people who would disqualify you are projecting their own insecurities or justifying their own inaction or actions. Biblical history is filled with people whom others would have disqualified for various reasons. Moses felt disqualified due to his speech impediment. Gideon felt disqualified because he came from the weakest clan in Manasseh. David was overlooked by his own father when Samuel came looking for Israel's next king. Mary felt overwhelmed by the angel's announcement that she would bear the Messiah. Yet God chose each of them specifically because of, not despite, their apparent limitations. Modern psychology recognizes the phenomenon as imposter syndrome, the feeling that you're not qualified for opportunities you've been given and that others will eventually discover your inadequacy. But this feeling often strikes precisely when you're on the verge of significant breakthrough because the enemy knows your potential even when you don't. Your supposed disqualifications may actually be God's qualifications in disguise. What seems like a limitation to you might be exactly what positions you to reach other people can't connect with. Your youth provides fresh perspective. Your age provides wisdom and credibility. Your brokenness provides compassion and authenticity. Character compensates for credentials. Paul didn't tell Timothy to wait until he was older or more experienced to begin ministry. Instead, he instructed him to compensate for perceived limitations through exceptional character. Set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Character creates credibility that no amount of credentials can provide, while lack of character undermines even impressive qualifications. This principle operates in every field of endeavor. People follow leaders they trust more readily than leaders they merely admire. Customers prefer doing business with companies they respect over companies that simply offer the lowest prices. Students learn more from teachers who care about them than from teachers who merely possess knowledge. Character bridges gaps that credentials alone cannot span. Daniel exemplified this principle as a young exile in Babylon. He had no formal credentials in Babylonian government, no political connections, no impressive resume. Yet his character, integrity, wisdom, faithfulness, and competence created such credibility that multiple kings trusted him with their most important decisions. His character compensated for his lack of conventional qualifications. Character development isn't automatic or accidental. It requires intentional choices to do right, even when no one is watching. Tell truth, even when lies would be easier. Serve others, even when self-service is more profitable. And maintain purity, even when compromise is more popular. These choices create internal qualifications that external credentials cannot provide. Your character is the one qualification entirely within your control. You can't control your age, your background, your education, or your circumstances, but you can control your integrity, your attitude, your work ethic, and your faithfulness. Focus on developing character that creates credibility rather than waiting for circumstances that seem more favorable. Faithfulness fulfills purpose. Paul's instruction to Timothy emphasizes faithfulness in small things as the pathway to larger impact. Setting an example in your speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity isn't glamorous or immediately impressive, but it builds the foundation upon which God constructs extraordinary purposes. Faithfulness in present responsibilities prepares you for future opportunities. The principal challenge is our culture obsession with immediate significance and instant impact. We want to start at the top, skip the preparation phase, and achieve maximum influence with minimum investment. But God's development process typically involves faithful service in small things that build character and competence for larger things. Jesus operated according to this principle when he spent 30 years in relative obscurity before beginning public ministry. Those weren't wasted years. They were preparation years that developed the character, wisdom, and spiritual foundation necessary for his 3-year ministry that changed the world. His faithfulness in the carpenter shop prepared him for faithfulness under pressure. Joseph demonstrated the same principle through faithful service as a slave in Potiphar's house and a prison in Pharaoh's jail. Each position seemed like a setback from his dreams of leadership, but each actually developed skills and character he needed for his ultimate role as Egypt's second in command. His faithfulness in small responsibilities prepared him for extraordinary opportunities. Your current responsibilities, however small or seemingly insignificant, are your preparation ground for larger purposes. Excellence in present duties demonstrates readiness for greater opportunities. Faithfulness with current resources qualifies you for additional resources. Character development through ordinary challenges prepares you for extraordinary challenges. In conclusion, stop letting supposed disqualifications prevent you from pursuing God's purpose for your life. You're not too young, too old, or too broken to be used by God. Your apparent limitations may be exactly what qualifies you for assignments that others couldn't handle as effectively. Focus on developing your character rather than lamenting circumstances. Let your speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity set an example that creates credibility beyond your credentials. Character is the one qualification entirely within your control and the most important qualification for kingdom impact. Be faithful in your current responsibilities, however small they may seem. Excellence in present duties demonstrates readiness for future opportunities. Use your current position as training ground for larger purposes rather than waiting for perfect circumstances to begin serving significantly. Remember that God specializes in using unlikely people to accomplish extraordinary purposes. He chose a shepherd boy to become king, a stuttering fugitive to lead a nation, and a teenage girl to bear the Messiah. He's still in the business of using people whom others might overlook or underestimate. Your qualifications aren't determined by human standards, but by your divine calling. If God has placed a purpose in your heart, he has also provided everything necessary to fulfill it. Stop listening to the disqualifying voices and start developing qualifying character. You are not too anything or not enough of anything for God's purposes. You are exactly who he needs for the assignment he's given you. God bless and have a great day.